I want to welcome you all to Navigating the Perfect Storm, 4 areas to explore in uncertain times. And we are definitely in uncertain times. A perfect storm is defined as an event where a rare combination of circumstances will aggravate a situation drastically. So think about that. A rare combination of circumstances will aggravate a situation drastically. And what I have for you tonight is an example of what I am seeing in my coaching clientele of 3 storms that are coming together that are affecting people not personally but also in the workplace. So that brings us to our first storm. According to the American Psychology Association, 57% of Americans are reporting post-election stress. Right? Probably, yeah, I was probably one of them. So we can definitely relate to that. And what we see and what we're hearing is we're hearing of families being ripped apart because of it, not talking to one another, friendships over 30 years going away, neighbors not talking to one another. We are also seeing lack of motivation as a stress. We're seeing sleeping issues, short temper, especially in the workplace. And we're also seeing that there is a lack of attention to the task. People are unable to focus on the task at hand. So, how many of you can relate to what I just said? Have ever experienced it or saw it? So what are some other things that you are experiencing or seeing that I haven't mentioned? Raise your hand.
Fear.
Julia.
Lack of civility.
Lack of civility. Fear, I heard.
Media addiction.
Media addiction. Thank you. Yeah. Withdrawal. Exactly. Negativity.
Fear.
A lot of fear.
Gaslighting.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Gaslighting.
Gaslighting.
It's when you don't know, you doubt yourself.
Doubt.
You don't know if it's true or fake news.
Doubting yourself. Yeah, fake news. Thank you. Right, so there are a lot of things, and we're really also seeing this a lot in the workplace, which actually brings me to my second storm. Now, what's happening right now, it's very interesting. For the first time in our history in the workplace, we have 5 generations in the workplace. First time. That generation starts with the traditionalists that started around 1925, and it goes to current day. That's 92 years. That's the first time. HR professionals are having a hard time knowing what to do with that. Right? The traditionalists, also known as the silent generation, are also our veterans. They really relate to rules and authority. Then we go to the baby boomers that we hear so much about. And one of the reasons why we hear so much about the baby boomers is because that's the first generation, that is the largest generation we had. And they are called the me generation. Then we go to Generation X, which is the latchkey generation, but also they're the generation that trusts the least. Then we go to the millennials. We hear a lot about the millennials, don't we? Well, guess what? They are now the largest generation. Just beat the baby boomers, just beat them. They are about connection. They are about experiences. They will take less pay to work less hours. They don't have a problem with that. They're also the mobile generation. Then that brings us to Generation Z, or sometimes called Centennials. Now they are a very serious generation. Their major influence has been 9/11. And what's interesting about this generation is they are starting to call this generation the silent generation. And they also are the digital generation because everything is about those electronics. So what's interesting about the silent generation is some say, well, it's the technology. It could be. But if you think about it, the traditionalists, also silent, they had World War II and Pearl Harbor. This generation had 9/11. They have a lot in common. Right? So why is this important? And why are we seeing so many of these generations in the workforce? First of all, people are living longer and they're more active. And the baby boomers and the traditionalists, because they're living longer and more active, want to work. And they also identify themselves by their work. Some of them, the traditionalists and the baby boomers, can't retire because they're taking care of their millennial children to their 20s and 30s. And also, they're taking care of their elder parents. So they got the double whammy. So they're feeling the pressure there. So this is the impact that we're seeing on the workforce. Now, here is the storm in this storm story. Here it is. 70%, according to the Gallup 2017 study, 70% of employees are checking out or they're disengaged. 70%. If you look globally, it's 87%. Wow. 55% of the millennials are disengaged and checking out. So we have the traditionalists and the baby boomers exiting the workforce and they're disengaging and checking out. We have the other generation coming up and they're disengaged and checking out. And most of it is centered around communication. They want to be and have transparency around the performance reviews. Everyone wants to be able to say, hey, we value your skill set and we value you. They also, most workers want to be able to understand the mission and vision of the company because they want to get behind it. They want to understand it. And when you have lack of communication, people begin to disengage. Which brings us to our third storm, lack of effective communication. Now this is interesting. There was a study done by UCLA Psychology Department where they took 6th graders and they divided them up into two. One half, they took away all digital screens, their television, laptops, their smartphones for 5 days. The other group, they let them go ahead, go as normal. Just do what you normally do. And what they found was the group that didn't have those digital screens for 5 days was significantly able to recognize another human's emotion better than the other group. So what does that mean? That means we are losing our ability to recognize another human's emotions. Why is that important? Because in face-to-face conversations, 55% of what we watch and pick up is body language. 35% is volume and tone of voice. 90% is right there. 10% is content.